So I'm going to talk to you about social media and smartphones. And smartphones and social media and the things that it's causing children and teenagers to do are actually ruining kids' lives. And that's probably the strongest that I've said it. But I've got tons of research to show you today. And I think you'll see that is true. With that said, I am a tech optimist. I use, all my brother-in-laws are all engineers, and so I love technology. And so I love tools, and I love news. I love the AI stuff that's coming out. Like, it's so interesting to me. I just think technology is super cool. And so what I want to do today is, just for this talk, you could talk about technology in general, but I actually think technology is a gift, and it's just a tool. And you see technology in the first couple chapters of the Bible, okay? And when we think technology, we think computers, but tools, bronze. You have the bronze workers, you have people who make instruments, you have people who are amazing with food. That's all technology, okay? So I'm not here to bash technology, but I am here to present to you the facts of what has happened to teenagers in the last 10 years since the dawn of this rapid adoption of social media specifically. And so let's jump into this. I've got several charts here to show you. And let me back up just a tiny bit. What began this is I work at a camp, and our cell phone policy is 0 phones at camp. And we had some parents reach out asking about, pointing out there are a couple camps that are in our network of camps that allow their kids to have phones at camp. And so we wanted to take another look at our cell phone policy. Are we just outdated? Do we need to change how we're doing this? And so, so that was in this. That was 2024, January 2024. We began looking at that, and in February 2024, landmark book came out, Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. He's not a Christian. He's a professor at New York University, and he compiled research, tons of research showing just how much has changed since 2014 to 2024. And it's shocking what has happened in the last 10 years. And I don't know if there's any major academic research nerds out here, but one of the things that has been challenging in this world of social media and parenting is that it's almost impossible to prove through a study that social media is the cause. It's almost impossible, because what you have to do is you have to have longitudinal studies that isolate things that you just cannot isolate. And so ultimately, we're going to have to make some judgment calls. But I'll present some of the alternative views of what could be causing this huge change in the last 10 years, but I don't think that they really hold up as strongly as what I'm going to present to you here. Okay, so I've got several charts, just research from the last 10 years, and most of them will look like this, where you've got a timeline across the bottom, and then the severity of the issue. Some of the charts I'll have highlighted 2010 to 2014, because that was, 2010 to 2014 was when most teenagers from there forward have smartphones and social media. So first up, major depression among teenagers from 2010, 135% increase among girls, 161% increase among boys. This next chart, the survey respondents for our teenagers, they say often feel lonely, my life is useless, life often feels meaningless. And I don't want you to think I'm trying to trick you. All of these charts, they're scaled differently, so it's different timeline, different severity. But the point will still be really clear here is 2010 to 2014, you see a significant increase in these personal sentiments among teenagers. Okay, it remains relatively stable for what we have on record, and then it's a hockey stick after social media era. It is primarily impacting young people. You can see at the start of the chart, everybody remained, excuse me, pretty close. But starting in 2010 beyond, you see this insane increase among young people on anxiety prevalence, okay? And it has absolutely skyrocketed. And the older generation has not been nearly affected by this. And so, one thing we can kind of extrapolate from this is that the older you were when you got a smartphone or social media, the less affected you were by it, which tells us a little bit that has something to do with development, okay? So keep going here. This next chart, this is the chart of despair, and this is a little bit of a confusing chart. So what this chart is representing is they did a survey of thousands of people of all different ages, and they did one 12 years ago, and they do it every 2 years, okay? And what they did was, just to visualize it, it's like we put the youngest person over here, the oldest person down over there, multiplied by hundreds, and we want you to just rate how much despair you would say you have based on a number of questions. And so based on those responses, you'd have really low despair. If you had low despair, the chart goes up if you have more despair. Okay, so blue and green here is 2014, 2016, and 2012, 2014. You can see this is what life, as we have all grown up knowing life, this chart will make sense to us, okay? Your childhood and your teen years are the best years of your life, the lowest despair years of your life. It's fun, carefree. I mean, you don't have any responsibilities. You don't have the pressure of life on you, okay? And as you get in more responsibility, life gets harder, and you'd say you have more despair. And it keeps creeping up until you hit middle age. And for most people, especially men, 50s, 60s are described as some of the worst years of your life because for a number of different reasons. And then you get old and senile, and life seems to get better because you don't know any better. And no, you get perspective on life. And anyway, but the yellow and red line is the new generation. And what's crazy is that on this chart it shows us that the worst years of this generation's life are their childhood and teen years. So you can see the despair is at its highest among children and teenagers, and that's different, and that's not something we've ever seen before, and it's really sad. When I first came across this research in February, I've been around teens for about 10 years now. And I was a teenager once, and I have seen like this the rise in diagnosing things. Everything has a label now, right? And it's changed a lot in the last 20 years. And so my thought was, okay, we're just calling what we would call being stressed out, or I've just got a lot going on. We're labeling it as anxiety, okay? And so I was kind of skeptical of this at first. I just thought, we're just calling the same thing by a different name just to call attention to it. But if that were true, these next two charts would remain relatively the same, okay? And what I mean is, so this first chart is U.S. teens admitted to the hospital for non-fatal self-harm. So thinking like cutting or something to hurt yourself. And if it was just the same behavior with a different label, we would not see action like this change that much. And yet we see it has radically changed, especially among young girls. It's almost 300% increase in self-harm among 10 to 14-year-old girls. And boys, it's almost 100% increase. Okay? Suicide, again, if it was the same problem, just a different name, this would remain the same, and yet it is not at all. Boys, almost 100% increase in suicide among 10 to 14-year-olds, and 167% increase among girls. For the first time ever, young men are more likely to commit suicide than middle-aged men. And this last year, or 2 years ago, is the first time that's ever happened. And yeah, it's really sad. So there are a couple of other theories that have been put forth as potential causes, and they may play a small part in it, but don't find them super convincing. The first one is economic uncertainty. That's why everybody's anxious and ending their lives. And that money has gone up and down since the dawn of time, and even since 2008. Like, there's not like a clear correlation between the two. The other one is school shootings. So in 2010 and 2014, you do have some pretty high-profile school shootings that were pretty scary. And but if it was school shootings, this would be a uniquely American problem, and it's not a uniquely American problem. It is a Western world problem, and because you see it in Canada, you see it in the United Kingdom, you see it in Australia, and you see it in the Nordic countries. Pretty much any Western country that has had this rapid adoption of smartphones and social media have been affected by this in a similar way. And so it doesn't mean that those things don't have an impact, but really the big thing that's changed in the last 10 years has been we've all got smartphones and social media. And so a couple things. So what happened? Again, a lot of this comes from, if you haven't read the book Anxious Generation, highly, highly recommend it. So this is a short summary of kind of his book. There are really two big things that have happened that have led to this moment. Okay, the first is that we have overprotected children in the physical world. We've overprotected children in the physical world. And so this chart here is interesting. The darkest line here is the youngest age category. And you can see 20 years ago, the most injured, like accidental injury category of all ages was kids, which probably most of us, that's when we got our injuries. I broke my elbow and to get stitches in my chin before I turned 10, both of those injuries. And probably many of you in this room have injuries like that. And but now, 20 years later, children are the least injured category of all ages. Okay, which sounds like a good thing, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing developmentally, because God has wired children to naturally take risks, and children naturally go play. God has designed them to go play and be injured. Okay, God has designed children to be anti-fragile. And I've just got a couple funny pictures here. So this is the playground from 40 years ago. This is Dave Callison's era. And honestly, this looks awesome to me. Okay, this looks awesome. But that would never fly today. Okay, you should build one of these at the church. Okay, and remember these. Okay, I was one of the bigger kids in my church, and so I just messed some people up on these things. And but now most playgrounds look like this. And it's not that these playgrounds are wrong or bad, but you can see it's symptomatic of a culture that has made safety a huge priority for children. And I said the phrase anti-fragile. So we're all familiar with fragile systems. My laptop here is fragile. If I throw it on the ground, it will be broken, and it won't update to the newest software because I threw it on the ground, right? It's fragile. It will be broken. But God has created children, especially in the developmental stages of their life, pre-adolescent, to be especially anti-fragile. And some other things that we are familiar with that are anti-fragile, our immune system is anti-fragile. The more sick that you get without dying, the stronger your immune system gets. Okay? It's actually a good thing to get sick. Just like a little side, like hobby horse here, soapbox. So raise your hand. I was homeschooled. Raise your hand if you homeschool your kids or were homeschooled. Praise God, I'm among friends here, okay? I spoke at a homeschool conference, and I almost got booed out of the room for what I'm about to say, okay? Ooh, just got really quiet. So, no, and I was really mean because this is what I did. I said, hey, you guys remember COVID? COVID, hate COVID. And I do too, okay? Do you remember, don't you hate the government telling you what to do with your kids? Like, you gotta stay home. And it's like, all of us, like, oh yeah, that was horrible. You remember how you were killing grandma if you were sick and you showed up somewhere? Like, it was crazy. And all of us, yeah, oh, it's horrible, okay? And then, but here's kind of a little bit of a dig, okay? To my crunchy friends, and I'm a little crunchy, and is we kind of do the same thing socially now, where if you bring a kid that's sick to church, how dare you get my kid sick? And we've adopted this mentality of rather than just everybody gets sick, it's part of life, now it's like, I know who gave this to me. And we're keeping track. And you know what, can I just have some, you don't have to ever see me again, okay? There's some freedom here. Let's just all get sick at the same time, rather than spread it out over weeks of a time. And you know what, it'll be better for you if you get sick. There you go. All right. Wow, that was tense there, okay? A good instinct is to be protective of your children. That God designed you to want to take very good care of your children. That's a great thing. But something changed in the 80s and 90s as far as people's perspective of children's safety. In the 80s and 90s, you had the milk carton that would have a picture of a child that was missing. I wasn't alive for any of this, but I've seen the missing child. And it was portrayed in the 80s and 90s that everyone was out to get your kids. And at that time, it was really popular in the media, the 24-hour news cycle, to promote as many high-profile scandals as possible regarding children's safety. Because that's what sells. Okay, scary sells. And what turns out is, 80s and 90s, you even had some high-profile daycare scandals that, were enough to scare us, but now 10 years later, then they found out actually none of it was true. Not none of it, but most of it wasn't true, because at that point in history, the counseling movement, it was all about repressed memory theory. Whereas you're gonna draw something out of a child by counseling them, and what was happening is they were drawing things out of kids that had never happened. Okay? Which just made us all super freaked out. Okay? And so there's this huge shift away from kids go outside and play. You can go down the road and play with the neighbors, to it's well, I got to keep my kid right here, and I need to watch them. And again, that's not a bad instinct to want to be careful with your children, but I just want to make the point it is not as, we made it seem a lot more dangerous than it really is for kids to be out, okay, in the 80s and 90s, and we really haven't come back since. And it's gotten to the point where if you were to send your kid down the street on a bike, you might get the police called on you, for neglecting your child. And it's really not good, because children need to go play and play freely. And because children do not play the same when adults are supervising the play. And here's what I mean. I don't mean they go do really stupid things, but, well, maybe a little bit. But this first one here. So I run games at camp professionally. I'm a professional game guy. And I didn't know that was a job growing up. And had I known that, that would have been my college path, was to be a game guy. And so I love helping kids run games, okay? And if I see kids playing tag and there's a conflict, I want to step in and help them figure out how to play it, okay? But it's gotten out of control, okay? Here's a school poster on how to play tag. Include everyone. I'm going to skip over that one. Practice good sportsmanship, one-finger touch, no ball tag. If a player doesn't want to play tag, then other players must respect that. There's a bunch of rules on how to play tag. I never had to be taught how to play tag, but this is an example of adults stepping into something that really kids just need to go play tag. And conflict just needs to happen, okay? Probably you have a coworker that you work with, if you work for any length of time, and I'll just ask. I've got my boss right here, one of my bosses right here. Okay, Dave, do we ever have conflict in the office? Never, you and I. Not since yesterday. Any conflict? Yes. And when was the last time we resolved a disagreement with rock, paper, scissors? Never. And you know what? That's not real life, okay? And in the same way, like, we've got to let children work through conflict where feelings get hurt and you're misunderstood. Somebody says something too strongly. Someone responds too strongly. You eventually go, well, I still want to play with you, so we got to figure this out. And like, that's good. That's healthy. That's part of growing up. And coming back to the anti-fragile systems concept, if children do not have conflict, despair, injury, or sickness growing up, when they become an adult, they will not be able to function because that's part of being an adult. Okay, illustration, we want to go to, Elon Musk wants to take us to Mars, and so we've been spending the last decade preparing, experimenting on how life on Mars, what life on Mars would look like, and so they built these domes, biodomes, where they're growing plants, and so they planted some trees in these biodomes, and now, we're about 8 years into the project, and the trees have all grown to a certain size that they're all falling and collapsing in the biodomes, and the reason they found that they're collapsing is these trees did not have any natural adversity while they were growing. Okay, trees out in creation, they have wind blow on them, and what happens is when the wind blows, it bends the tree, but it causes it to strengthen its bark on this other side, and it extends its roots out further. Okay, and what happens is these trees in the biodome, as they're growing straight up, and they're growing to be fairly large, but the bark is weak, the roots are tight in, and so they're collapsing under their own weight. So the illustration comes true with children. If children never have winds of life, never any kind of adversity, despair, injury, conflict, then they're going to collapse under the weight of life, of adulthood. And you're seeing this bear fruit in that children are doing less and less real adult things. Okay, so this chart has adult activities and 12th graders and their participation in them, and drinking is down, sex is down, and by the way, kids are not becoming more moral. That's not the illustration. That's not what you should take from that. But sex and drinking are way down. But so is work, and so are driver's licenses. Kids today are not leaving home to go work, and they are delaying getting a driver's license as long as possible, which for most of us in this room, that just sounds absolutely bananas. Because as soon as I turn 16, it's like, I'm getting my license, okay? But if you've never had any kind of hardship that you've overcome, a flat tire does seem like it would ruin my life. Anyway, and so children are just they're not growing up. And there's probably more to be said here, but I'm going to move on to the next thing. So we've overprotected children in the physical world, which led us to, as a culture, being ripe and ready for something to come in and provide some sort of entertainment or babysitting for that child that is losing their minds in my living room, okay? And I've got to give them something to do. And so that's where smartphones and social media have kind of filled that vacuum. And so the next point is we've underprotected children in the digital world. And Apple came out with a commercial 2 years ago called Crush, I think it's Crush. And they took a giant hydraulic press, like the size of the stage here, and they had a piano, drum set, they had sculpture, paint, a bunch of instruments, just a bunch of fun things to do, some sports stuff. And it was all in this hydraulic press, and the hydraulic press is coming down, and it crushes everything. And it lifts up, and there's an iPad. And the point that was made is, it's the thinnest iPad, and you can do all these things on it. But it had to be taken down. They took it down because they received a ton of flack, I think rightfully so, because what it looked like is, we're going to replace all of life's experiences and just give you an iPad instead. And that has been harmful for children and for development. And what I'm gonna go to here, 4 foundational harms. I'm jumping into social media specifically. 4 foundational harms. And what do I mean by foundational harms? I think all of us would agree that, like, if kids are looking at bad stuff, like, that's bad. Okay, all of us agree with that. And I get this. This is said to me a lot, and I think there's probably a good discussion to be had on it. But it's often said, like, well, we got to figure out how to use social media for good. Okay, and there's probably something there, but I'm specifically talking about the social media as a medium or as a tool. These 4 harms are true, even if everything they look at is perfectly curated Christian homeschool approved content. Okay? If somehow you could do that, if somehow you could control everything they look at, everything they post, these 4 things would still be true. Okay? And so this first one here, ironically, social media has led to the largest shift in face-to-face interaction. Social media has led to tremendous social deprivation. Okay, it promised more connection, but actually we spend less time with people than we ever have. Okay, and especially children. Children used to spend upwards almost 3 hours a day hanging out with people, face-to-face, friends. And it has plummeted. In the last 10 years, last 20 years. And a lot of people want to blame COVID, and COVID is on this chart. You can see here this final elbow and all these age categories is 2020. Okay, we just don't spend enough time together face to face, and it changed dramatically in 2020. However, teens, this youngest age category, that is 2019, and so this chart shows children were social distancing before COVID. Actually, if you have a teenager, no one was more excited about COVID than teenagers. Because they got to stay home and stay on their phone and play games. It was awesome. Okay, because they didn't have to spend time with people, because people are hard. Like, face-to-face interactions are awkward. If you talk to a kid today, most teenagers will talk about, oh, it's just so awkward. Like, can you just shoot me a text? Can you text me? Don't call me. It's so awkward. And it is awkward, okay? But children are spending less time talking face-to-face. If you want to come, and I'll do another workshop where I'll go into some other things on these 4 foundational harms, but children need to spend time. We all need to spend time face-to-face with people. Jesus could have just zapped our minds with truth. Like, he could have like Wi-Fi, like, downloaded, airdrop information into my brain, but he chose actually to come to earth as a person, dwell among us. He took on flesh, and he sat and talked to tons of people. Okay, so we want to be like Jesus. Anyway, social deprivation is extremely harmful for children and for development, for life. You can't get married unless you learn how to talk to somebody. It's part of why kids are struggling to get married today. Okay, here's another interesting thing: AI companions. This is actually this chart. This study came out this summer. AI companions. This is not just like using ChatGPT. This is like Facebook or Meta, Instagram. They've got AI companions. Where it will pretend to be your best friend, or to pretend to be your school teacher that you look up to, or in its more diabolical forms, it'll be a sexual partner. Okay. Anyway, so 72% of teens in this study, about a little over 1,000 teenagers, 72% have used an AI companion. 52% are regular users, and 31% find AI as satisfying or more than talking to a real person. Okay? And actually, I think this is like a helpful thought exercise, because we would all say, "No, that's crazy. Like, that's not a real person. And you can't live life pretending to, talking to a fake person. That's not real, and that's not good. But part of why it's become such a big deal among teens is because it's virtually, experientially, it's no different than social media use, period. Okay? If we lived in an alternate universe where every single Facebook post that you look at was AI generated and you never knew, would that change anything about you? Probably not. Like if everybody sounded like your friends, you would probably never know. Why? Because it's not face to face. You don't know. It's all happening on the other side of a screen. And anyway, it's not the same as interacting with people face to face, and it's harmful, especially in those developmental ages, childhood up through your teen years. Okay. The next one, number 2, sleep deprivation. Teens have always been night owls. They always like sleeping in, but it has gotten to a point that is actually out of control. Teens need more sleep than any other age category, and yet they're getting less sleep than any other age category. And the effects of not getting enough sleep are very well documented. Okay, anxiety goes up, depression goes up, academic failure goes up, more accidents leading to death. All of those rise with not sleeping. And I would say maybe just in general, teens, and probably us adults too, are not taking good care of our bodies in general. And sleep is a critical component that specifically social media affects for 2 reasons. One, having a light this close to your face as you're trying to go to bed, not helpful, okay? There are lots of studies that it's the blue light on your eyes is not helpful for going into your regular sleep pattern. The other thing is the endless scrolling. You could just go forever and never go to sleep, okay? And so we've got to go to sleep, okay? And kind of like side thing, our caffeine intake has gotten out of control, okay? Now I'm going to sound like an old man here, okay? I love coffee. I drink 2 cups of coffee pretty much every single day. 1 at breakfast, 1 right after lunch, help me get through that, okay? But when I was a teenager and I wanted to go to the Humiston pool and absolutely lose my mind, like, we're going to go hard today, I would get a Red Bull from the Casey's across from Wojo's, and I'd get a Red Bull, and we just go crazy, okay? But Red Bull only has 120 milligrams of caffeine. I say only because I'll just, at camp, this girl, 120-pound girl, has a Celsius with between 200 and 300 milligrams of caffeine, drinking it right before supper, okay? And for some reason, it's become like, oh, kids will be kids. But like, it's gotten out of control. And the half-life of caffeine is 10 hours, which means if you have 100 milligrams of caffeine in your body at 4 o'clock, that means at 2 a.m., you still have 50 milligrams of caffeine in your body. And it is affecting you, okay? And yes, I'm Mr. ADD. I don't know if they're labeling, I probably do have it. But even that, there are studies that show, okay, that caffeine helps people with some neurological conditions to focus better. But even that, it affects sleep, okay? There you go. Do with that what you will. But we need to take better care of our bodies. And part of it is I don't think as Christians we have taught very well on the body. We become accidental Gnostics where it's only the spirit that matters. As long as their heart is good, what they do with their body doesn't matter. That's not true. God cares a lot for the body. 1 Corinthians 6, God is for your body is for the Lord. Okay, keep going here. Attention fragmentation, number 3. It is just become more and more difficult for children with devices and social media to pay attention to things. Average teenager received 237 notifications per day. I don't have it on here, but the University of Chicago did what's called the brain drain study. You go take a look at it. And the gist of the study is, if you have your phone on you, you just cannot pay attention as well in school. And receiving information, if you receive information, it's harder for you to take that information and apply it to new situations. Okay, that's one of the specific things that's affected by having a phone in your pocket or on your desk in school. And one of the things that makes this especially harmful for Christians and for really all people, one of the most important things to spiritual development is receiving information and applying it to your life. And if having a smartphone that's constantly buzzing in my pocket is, by research, showing that I cannot do that as well. And so I've got to find a way to not have my attention pulled from one of the most important things in my spiritual development, okay? And we'll talk about that in my other workshop too, okay? Last one, addiction, okay? Addiction. All social media companies and many video game companies use this model right here, and it's not like a hidden thing. This is just what they all use. This is the standard process for getting you hooked to a program, to their social media, or again, to a video game. And so I'll explain the chart here. Begins with the trigger, top left corner. It's a notification. And they're so creative. They're so smart about the way they do this. They used to have different notification sounds for different apps, like, that's Snapchat, and that's Instagram. Now it's all the same ding. So you never know what notification you're getting. Okay, you never know. And so they're all benefiting from each other doing that. So trigger, I get a red circle on my app, which red means stop, resolve this. Okay? And anyway, there's a trigger calling you take an action. So click the notification, log into the app, and then a variable reward. And I think the best illustration I could come up with to explain variable reward is a slot machine. So on my way down here, drove right by Lakeside Casino and Clark County. Man, the roads are nice in Clark County. They must be getting a lot of tax money from that. Anyway, one time I had to meet somebody at Lakeside Casino to take me to a basketball thing. And man, I felt like I was in sin just standing in the lobby. It was just, man, I hope no one sees me. Anyway, whatever. But I was in there, and I was looking down, and it's crazy. And I worked at a bank in college. Like, you just see old people captured by the slot machine. It's crazy. They just sit there and just pull and pull and pull, and money just getting flushed down the toilet, and marriages crumbling, but they're just boom, boom, boom. Why? Because of this concept of variable reward, okay? When you play slot machine, you hit it, and sometimes it'll be like, oh, I got 2 out of the 7, but I got 2 sevens, and I got cherry. So close to getting it, okay? And you pull 10 times, and 1 out of 10 times you get it, and when you get it and it pays out, it's awesome. It's like, like it was all worth it. And it actually hits harder because you pulled 9 and it didn't get it, and actually stronger on the 10th one when you finally got it, okay? That's the concept of variable reward, and that social media apps use. They blast you with notifications, send you all kinds of things, and most of the time you don't actually get what you want. When you're scrolling through videos, like 9 out of 10, it's like, it's not that good. And it's like, oh, that's an amazing video. Like, that's actually really fun, okay? When you get the one fun, it grabs you. So I got to keep going. Okay, lastly, investment. The more that you put in, the more you got to stick with it. And if you've ever tried to delete Facebook, you have felt this with me, okay? I went to delete Facebook, and it's like breaking up. It's like breaking up with a girlfriend. It's just brutal. Are you sure? It's like, yes, I'm sure. I need to delete this. Delete. And it says, whoa. But you're going to lose all your friends. And you can lose all your pictures. That kind of gets me a little bit. It's like, well, I do have a lot of pictures on there. And so it's like, are you sure you want to do that? You know what, let me offer you this. Just deactivate the account, but you can come back anytime you want. Okay? And deactivating is just logging out, essentially. It's not really doing anything. And it's like anytime you log back in, you're back, okay? The investment point is the more you put in, the more I got to stick with it. I got to keep it going, okay? And then I become internally motivated to keep going, okay? And I'm hooked. And addiction distorts reality. Addiction takes things that are unimportant, pitifully unimportant things, and it elevates them above things that are extremely important. And again, you see this with addiction, with gambling addiction, with drinking addiction, okay, where it's literally, dude, you are going to lose your family if you go out tonight. Well, you know what? It's more important for me to go pull the slot machine. And it's not because the addiction has radically rewired the way that they are seeing reality. And so addiction, it can be something really like unimportant, like a Snapchat streak, but what it does is it distorts life, and it makes that streak more important than the people that I'm with. Okay, reality is distorted when I become addicted. And again, addiction is harmful for the neurological development of children. It is not something you want to see during those critical years of development. Okay. To the addiction stuff a little bit more. I think a helpful, because I can paint this picture like this is like doing heroin. And it's not that. It's not that if you have social media, you're gone forever, okay? But I would probably describe it at like alcohol. And I read this illustration. It's in Habits of the Household, and it's a great illustration. Forgive me for wherever you're at on alcohol. I think probably most of us in this world can kind of at least understand the illustration here, okay? This is not my position on alcohol, but here we go. Wow, this is exciting here. Okay, so drinking. Okay, if you're an adult, and you have, wow, I can't believe I'm saying this. My pastor would be so disappointed in me. But if you're an adult and you drink a beer with friends, again, this is not my position. Okay, I'm done making caveats. But you know what? We would not see that as they've got a problem. Right? It's like, you know what? That's permissible, okay? But if you see a child going to drink alcohol with their friend, you'd say, bad news. If you see someone going into their room alone to drink alcohol, you think that's a problem. That's not right. And I would describe social media really very similarly, okay? It's not heroin that as soon as you do it, it's like that's a huge deal. It's more like alcohol in that if at a young age, you've got this unfettered access and you're going into your room alone, you're secluding yourself from other people to go pursue this, it's really not good long term. And you're not setting yourself up for long-term success as an adult. But when you're an adult, you've developed neurologically, your frontal lobe is developed, you've gone through all those developmental stages, it's not going to have the same impact on your mind. Okay, so it's easy to paint it like this worst thing ever. It's not, but there is something to be considered about age-appropriate use and its effects. Okay, so I'm gonna go. I took this out the last time I did the presentation at church, and they said, hey, it'd be helpful if you just told us some rules so we can blame you for making rules in our house. So I'll give you my suggestions, and then again, let me back up. If you're kind of on the fence on this, or you've got more questions, my next workshop, I'll be hitting these foundational harms and what the Bible has to say about this. Just want to say this just in front of everybody. Being a good Christian does not mean being the one with the longest list of rules that you keep, okay? That's not the point of any of this, okay? The point is not just to add more law to your life. But what I want to present to you is that there's so much more and so much better than social media has to offer, namely face-to-face relationships, so much better than interacting with people through social media. Taking good care of your body, so much better than getting to stay up late and scroll through things, okay? Being able to pay attention to the Word of God, not being distracted, so much better. And being free from addiction and letting Christ rule your life is so much better, okay? And so it's not that I want to add more law, I just want to present something better, okay? And again, don't hear I'm anti-technology. I'm very specifically looking at social media using these addictive tools to capture children, okay? So here's some suggestions. No smartphone or social media before 16. And here's why I land on that number. Well, first off, you don't need social media before 16. Your child will not be behind in the world if they don't have social media. In fact, they'll probably be ahead of most people if they delay it, okay? But there is something to be said about having your kid at home when they first get access to it and say, hey, you know what, let's help you think through this. And let's do that while you're at home, rather than you're super tight all the way through, and then they experience it for the first time, and they go crazy on it when they leave home, okay? So there's something there. But I would say, no smartphone, no social media before 16. They need a phone. Flip phones are great. And just, yeah. Sometimes we use smartphones as a babysitter, and again, that goes back to we're probably overprotective of children and teenagers even. Keep going here. Number 2, highly recommend, suggest phone-free youth group. Phone-free youth group, phone-free missions trips, and phone-free camp. I say this, and I'm saying this to parents, because a youth pastor, whoever leads youth, it's really awkward for them to say, we're going to do no phones, and then for you to come along and say, my kid has to have a phone. That's awkward, and most pastors don't feel like they can have that kind of whatever. And so let me just say here, I'd highly recommend going phone-free in youth group because then you can pay attention to the Word of God and you can pay attention to people rather than you often see kids at youth events and in youth group who are sitting on the sideline just looking at their phone. Okay, man, that's rough. Okay, so highly recommend phone-free events and mission trips. Keep going here. Power down phones 1 hour before bed. We've got to get sleep, and so hey, we're going to say hour before bed. If our bedtime is 10 o'clock, okay, 9 o'clock, time to shut it down, and let's just read books or hang out, or you can even watch things together. No phones at meals. Dave Callison had a great just comment about mealtime. I'd preserve that and make that phone free. No phones in bedroom or bathroom. Somebody said it this way: anywhere that you'd get undressed. You really shouldn't be bringing your phone with you. And that's not always super realistic. So I'd maybe say, when you come home, let's say supper on, we're not going into the bedroom alone with the phone, and we're not going to the bathroom for 30, 45 minutes with the phone. Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay. Number 6, address pornography. Here's kind of the framework that I recommend a couple things. And I need to wrap this up because we have lunch next. Pornography is just unbelievably rampant. Okay, I work with young men. I've been working with them for about almost 10 years now, and I've gotten to the point that I'm a very good place to assume every single boy I'm working with is looking at porn. It is ubiquitous with teenagers. It's everywhere. And the average exposure to pornography keeps getting younger and younger. Last I looked, is 10 years old. Okay? And unless you are doing something radical to address it, it's still going on. Okay? And we can bury our heads in the sand and say, oh, that's not my kid. I've just told you, I work with cream of the crop kids all over the state of Iowa. The best kids. And all of them have been looking at pornography. Okay, so need to address it. Just you address it in these five just broad things. Relationship, you got to talk about it. You got to have an open door. They got to know they can come to you and talk about it. You're going to help them work through it. Okay, you're going to address pornography in general with them. The relationship is huge. The router, your internet that goes out through your house, that router, you can have a filter on it, and that's huge. Okay, because teenagers can get around everything. Okay, You got to monitor at the device level. There are different programs different things you can install on phones that help with monitoring the device itself. Location, I already mentioned, don't take it in the bedroom at night. Don't let them take it certain places. And then lastly, parental controls. You really ought to be going after all those things. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's not just guys. In fact, my wife is a biblical counselor, almost done with her ACBC certification, and so she's counseled multiple girls in this area, and so it's gotten to be everywhere because everybody's seeing it. And thank you. Oh, I just said it. Last, co-watch or co-play screened activities. So I'm just kind of getting into real life. We all it's nice to watch TV. It's nice to have your kid be entertained for a little bit, okay? But highly, highly recommend, or I would not send them to just watch things by themselves. I would not send them to just go play games by themselves. Not necessarily just because of what it is, but let's make this a together thing, okay? And there's a relational component to it. The iPad really should not be your 2-year-old's babysitter. And maybe that, and yeah, it should not be. I mean, you go into Walmart and you just see a kid just like, bent over in the cart. And I understand it. I have a 2-year-old, so I understand that. But it's just not worth it in the long run, developmentally. And so something to consider. Willie, are you really going to keep going here? Just a couple of observations I want to make. Probably most of us watched Charlie Kirk's funeral, or at least part of it. Okay, do you remember Erica Kirk? She spoke, and one thing that has just stuck with me since is she talked about the lost boys of the West. Do you remember that phrase? And I can't help but think that this is a small part of it, in that we have young men that are not growing up in real life to go on and live life like the way God intended it to be lived. Okay, and so I think there's something in our world of we need to communicate a vision of what being a young man, a godly man, looks like, and how it's amazing to get married. So that's why you got to learn to talk to girls as a teenager. Not in a dating way, but you've got to be friends with girls. Marriage is an amazing thing. It's not a ball and chain, okay? It's not something that I do once I've got everything else figured out. But I would say the same is true for children. We've gotten to a point where children, it's like the culture has bombarded us that children are like going to ruin your life. That's not true. The Wall Street Journal just came out with an amazing article that described this very concept. It said we have, as a culture, moved from viewing spouse and children as a capstone event. Once I have made all the money I want to make, once I've made all the trips I want to make, once we've done all the fun things we want to do, then we'll get married, then we'll have kids. But that's not the way that we have seen it in all of history, but in the Christian church, okay? It has been part of life is getting married and having kids. It's a good thing. And it's something that we need to push. Okay, I think that's probably all the time that I need to take. I'm going to pray and bring your questions to the panel discussion, or I don't know what we're doing, panel. And I'll be around. So I love to talk to you more about this. So let me pray. And should I pray for lunch too? Is that what I should do? Okay. And thank you. Thank you, God, for the wonderful gifts that you've given us in this life. You've given us a wonderful gift of children, wonderful gift of your creation, delicious coffee, and delicious food. And you could have made food taste like grass, and yet in love, you chose to give us these complex tongues that can taste sweet and salty and sour and crunchy, and it's just so amazing. And so we thank you for that, and bless this food that we're about to eat to our bodies. God, help us to have wisdom in this area. every situation is going to be different. And we all need wisdom on how to apply it to our unique situation and unique phases of life. And thank you. We pray this in Jesus' name, and all God's people said, amen. Thank you.